We would have room to put some other cars, but I'm sure my husband won't let me have more than the one. Welcome back to Christina's Garage Gearhead in Training. This week I'm going to give you a tour of the garage. Let's start with the engines. I have two 383 strokers. One has all the parts on this side and the other one, all the parts are kind of on this side. When my dad showed me these, they were both assembled. We took them to TEM Performance where they disassembled it and evaluated both engines to see what parts we could reuse and how we should potentially rebuild it. This one, he said, wasn't necessarily one that we should use. He said, this one we can use, but I'm probably going to have to sleeve it and do some other machining to make it work for my needs. All the other parts we're pretty much going to buy brand new, except for the intake manifold. So this engine had a dual plane intake manifold. This one had a single plane intake manifold. From what I've learned, a single plane intake manifold, so this goes on top of the engine where the, oh my gosh, I'm still learning all the words and vocabulary, where the carburetor goes on top, then the intake manifold is where the air and everything comes in and how it goes into everything moves into the engine. And this top here, you take this off and that's where the carburetor goes on top. From what I learned, the single plane intake manifold is meant for more racing because you're able to bring in more air all at once, and the dual plane would be more for what I'm looking for, which I'm trying to do more of a daily driver. So we're actually going to be using the dual plane intake manifold instead of the one that came with this engine. And then we had the covers, which I'm going to reuse, but pretty much everything else we're going to replace. Well, since I have you here, I'll show you kind of close up. You can see it has two different sections where the air comes in. And this one is the dual plane. This is the single plane where you can tell it's a little bit different than the other one. Also inherited a bunch of other parts. This is actually a Ford rear end, so I'm not going to be using it on my car, but one of my brothers has a Ford Mustang, and my sister is looking to get a Ford Mustang as well. I'm going to hold on to this and make sure that neither of them need it before potentially selling it if it isn't needed by any of my siblings. Believe it or not, we were using the garage as a home gym before we decided, well, I decided to move the Camaro into the garage. We didn't have any additional storage units to put all the parts that I was inheriting, so my husband helped me put this together. We have one here and one on the other side. It's filled with boxes. Most of it is car parts. We do have some additional household items as well. We have some house paint and whatever, but we have the Willwood brake systems. We have additional parts for the subframe, the suspension. I have my paint in here. We're gonna have to remix the paint. I'm gonna have to find what the actual mix was that they used because it was already opened when I got a hold of it, because obviously the jams and everything were already done, so the container of paint was already open. It's not fresh, and we were able to use it for the epoxy primer to do the spray over. But in order to finish the car, when I'm at that point, we're gonna have to figure out specifically what the mixture was so that when we do paint it, that it's gonna be the exact color. We also have the center console here. I don't know if I'm gonna reuse that or not. I will kind of go through these things as we go to see whether I'm gonna reuse these items or not. Like the hubcaps, I'm not gonna be reusing these because these aren't the right size. I'm gonna be doing most likely 18s. Because any bigger than that, I don't personally like the wheels look any bigger than that. I need minimum of 18s for the brake system. So I've been looking into some other wheels and stuff, and I don't think I'm going to be reusing those. But I'm going to hold on to everything until we come to a point where I decide what specifically I'm going to use on the car. So the garage is going to be a little messy until the car is actually done. It might actually continue being messy after that, but hopefully we'll be able to get rid of some of the clutter. Here we got the Holley Sniper EFI. I'm going to likely upgrade to the newest Holley Sniper. When I talked to one of the guys at their booth at Hot August Nights, they said that they just came out with a new one. So I'm leaning towards that. I'm not totally sure at this time, but we're definitely going with Holley Sniper EFI, the Holley Sniper either way. Here we got a box of kind of random things. Got the tail lights in here. I know that the Hydro Boost is in here. I can't remember exactly all the parts. I know we have some Willwood pieces. And then we have QAI shocks, which are going to be used with the leaf springs in the rear. And I'm going to have to go through this box again to remember everything that's in here. I've had this stuff in my garage for close to 2 years now. I'm really going to have to go through everything, which is going to be a bit of a process. But I have the 2 front seats up here, and I believe, I don't remember where I put the bench seat. I don't remember if the bench seat is up, because we have rafters up here that we put parts. It might be up there, but we have some other dash stuff, interior. Up here we have the mats, the floor mats, and then engine hoist, which we used when we were taking these out, the 2 engines, when we were transferring them to TEM Performance. That's what we used, was the engine hoist. And obviously I don't need it right now, but when we start actually doing work, I'm probably going to use it to put the engine in. Yeah, that's a little ways from now. When I said I had a ton of boxes filled with car parts, I wasn't joking. All of this is filled with boxes with car parts that we got from my dad's place. We went through them initially when we first brought them here. There's a list of all the items and all the boxes. Not everything goes to my car. Like, this is a transmission, the pan that goes underneath the transmission for a Bel Air. My brother had a Bel Air. He's since sold it. But yeah, I don't know how much of this stuff I'm going to use on my car, what I'm going to need to sell or save for my siblings. And I have 2 transmissions down here, the Richmond 5-speed and the Doug Nash 4-in-1. They're actually the same exact transmission with a 1-to-1 ratio, which doesn't have overdrive. For me wanting to have the ability to drive on the freeway and at higher speeds for longer periods of time, I am actually going to be doing the Richmond RGI 5, which is their newest transmission, and not use either of these. But the cool thing is that Doug Nash was the original creator of this particular transmission, and then Richmond bought out Doug Nash, and so that's why these are the exact same transmission, but they have 2 different names. In order to make room, we put this 10 by 10, oop, there's a spider there, 10 by 10 roll-up door, and we did have some drainage issues, so we were already doing drainage stuff and put down more concrete. So I'm going to show you in a second. We have a pad here. Since my car doesn't drive yet and we have no engine, we have to manually push it. We don't have a steering column or anything either, so we have to adjust the wheels as we move it. And luckily my husband's brother and friends are willing to help me when we have to move it. But we don't bring it up to the front driveway because the angle is it goes up a little bit. So we'll push it out this direction, and I'm going to show you in a second. There's a pad behind here, and then I have the trailer stored back here as well. We would have room to put some other cars, but I'm sure my husband won't let me have more than the one. When we roll the car backwards, we bring it this direction and turn the wheels so that we can put the car right here. We try to move it as far to this side as possible so that when we bring the trailer by, that it makes it less possible for us to nick my car. But the way that the opening of the garage, it's just slighted, it's centered for the garage, but because we're kind of off this direction, we have to do a little finagling. This is the car trailer that we use to transport my car. Also, my brother-in-law has been super, super helpful. He was able to get the brakes working, and we're probably gonna have to get one of those hydraulic I forgot what they're called, the things that you can move it around, because we have to do a lot of movement to get it into the front. We can't bring my truck back in here just because it's not wide enough to really maneuver very well. So we're probably going to get a hydraulic one of those so that we can actually maneuver this much easier. And yeah, there's a couple things we want to do to it. Want to be able to put the battery here. So we're going to put a mount. But yeah, it's really nice to be able to have the trailer here on the property, so if I need to move my car, I can. As I said, right now, in order to get the trailer out, we have to move the car back, move the trailer out, and then move the car onto the trailer if needed. Luckily, my brother-in-law can use this for other purposes while we're working on the car, so the trailer is super, super helpful. And hidden in the dog kennel, we have the rotisserie, which my dad used to turn the body over so he can paint and clean it and stuff like that. Eventually, I want to get a partial lift in here. That's why we replaced this door as well. We used to have the standard one where the machine was down in the center, so you didn't have as much headroom. We changed the system completely, so the door not only goes up and goes up higher in the garage itself, but the machine is off to the side of the door, so we have more headroom. That way, when I do end up getting a partial lift, there are a couple that were movable, which I really liked. I forgot the name of the one I was looking at. I'll have to, it's been a little while since I've done some research on that. But there was one particular one, you can move it, bolt it into the ground, and it's 2 stacks where you can lift up the car, and then if you're not using it, you can unbolt it and move it off to the side. Because we moved the trailer through the garage itself, I don't want one of the lifts that stay stagnant where it makes it difficult to use the area. The trailer is much wider than what I would need for my car to go on a lift, so that wouldn't really work. But yeah, that's where I'm at so far, and I'm hoping that by next week I'll be able to show you, kind of go through with the VIN and the cowl, I'll kind of decode that and go through what the car was originally and what I found out about where it originated. I'll see you guys next week.